If you would have told me 12 years ago that the place that I was scrubbing toilets, cleaning the dock, would be the place that I would come back and have the best job of my life, there's absolutely no way I would have believed you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian H. Waters. A lot of you may know me as the wrestling guy. To some of your networks, shout out to my National Association of Black Journalists family. I'm known as the guy who always does the wrestling talk shows. Whenever there's a wrestling reference on the internet, a lot of times it's shared by people I didn't even know they pay attention to what I do. But I'm on a new journey. I decided about a month ago that I wanted to start an additional podcast. I wanted to share my network. You say, share your network? How? I've been blessed to be connected with so many great people. And these great people have stories. If you listen to them, you find out so many cool things that they've done to get to where they at. A lot of the challenges, as well as a lot of just great breaks. So I decided, I wanted to start a new podcast. And then, I was thinking about a name. I tend to like breaking things. I like to break things down and talk about it. I don't really do the whole debate thing. I'd rather just have a good discussion. But then there's also a thing I like to do, and that's break through glass ceilings. So I said, what? I'll have a podcast named Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling. So this podcast will feature, if you didn't get the press release, this podcast will feature some of my friends who broke through glass ceilings to get to where they are. But there'll also be some people, I'm planning to interview people who aren't necessarily friends, but people I come across that I feel have an interesting story, and I want to learn more about them so I could use this platform to do so. So I'm excited to do this and excited that you're taking the time out to listen to me. Before we get started, we got to do housekeeping. This podcast is brought to you by B. Waters Productions. Yeah, it's my own production company, which you can follow on Instagram. B. Waters Productions can provide you services such as social media graphics. If you want to make a flyer for an upcoming event, B. Waters Productions can do that. It can also provide you video and photography services. So make sure you visit B. Waters Productions Instagram page, and on Facebook, just follow me at Brian H. Waters / B. Waters Productions. They wouldn't let me have just B. Waters Productions, so I had to keep my name on that page. So and make sure you can follow me at Brian H. Waters on all platforms. So I'm going to take some time to share my story first. You may know I am a communications specialist at Johns Hopkins Medicine, where I am responsible for running the Hopkins Med News Twitter account, which is a journalist-facing Twitter account. But I'm also responsible for creating videos for my team, the media relations team. Shout out to the best media relations team in the world. I'm responsible for creating videos, Twitter cards, going to medical meetings to help enhance the brand reputation. Some of you may not know, though, that in 2006, February 2006, I started working at Johns Hopkins Medicine. Or it's actually Johns Hopkins Hospital, so all in the same thing. I was working at Johns Hopkins Hospital. I worked in nutrition. So at this time, I was in community college, Baltimore City Community College. I had just left working at the car dealership, Foreign Motors Kia, no longer in business. But I just left working there in that December. The reason why I left because the owner of the company had allegedly told the manager of the showroom, the Kia store, that because I had only sold one car in the month of November, where it's really cold in Baltimore City, where at the time there wasn't a lot of traffic. Because let's face it, if you want a brand new car, are you going to buy a Kia or are you going to buy a Toyota? You can go all the way up Bel Air Road, try to get a Toyota, or you can come down and get a Kia. That's as I tell you, going to Bel Air Road. Oh, then there's also the Ford dealership that was there too, owned by the same company. But yeah. Now I think the issue was that I came in during the summer. Actually, got that job by accident. I was dressed up. My mother was looking to buy a car, and I was dressed up. I went with her. I asked the guy, like, "Hey, you guys hiring?" They said, "Yeah, you want to wash cars?" They had filled that position, but the manager at the time appreciated the fact I was dressed up, so he decided to give me a job selling cars. But and I worked there, had a good summer. I was selling well, considering the store that was doing 20 cars, I was selling about 6 of them, and then it just didn't work out. So I would go to Johns Hopkins. My friend Alan at the time was working there. He had been there a year. He was working in nutrition in the cafeteria, just responsible for keeping the bins full, the food bins full, and I guess he stocked the inventory. But he told me about the job, and I went there, and I got hired as a food service worker, but I was in the warehouse setting, in the storeroom, in the basement. So my work hours were like 7 in the morning, 3:30. Had to work every other weekend. The first time I ever worked Christmas was doing that position. But I was in community college, and I was determined to graduate. I went to Baltimore City Community College, which was sort of frowned upon coming from Baltimore City College High School, a prestigious high school. And it's like, wait, you went to City and you're just going to go to BCCC? But I went there. And while I was there, I was determined that I was not going to be another person who said, yeah, I took some classes at BCCC, but I didn't graduate. I was determined that was not going to be me. I knew since the 10th grade that I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And I knew what it took to get there, but I had to go through these avenues. So, working in the storeroom, I don't like it. I was like, oh my goodness. To be honest with you, I am working with people who, I'm from East Baltimore. I'm working for people who are from West Baltimore, former drug dealers, who was at some points working there while they were still hustling, and a couple of people who just, they were some older people. Little would I know that some of those former drug dealers would make an impact on my life as they taught me a little street smarts, but they also would allow me to make an impact on their life. And they would become, a few of them actually, majority of them are still my friends to this day. So I'm working there and I'm going to school every day. As the summer hits, I'm working longer hours, but my job there was to sweep the warehouse. And also, of course, it was stock the food, stuff like that. But it was also sweep the warehouse. If I was on sanitation duty, my job would be to clean the dock, the loading dock where they would back the trucks in, clean the bathroom in that area. And I was sitting there thinking a lot of nights that, like, man, my parents sent me to Catholic school, sent me to city. My dad worked hard for me to be doing this. Now, before you get upset with me, my point was that this is not what I wanted to be doing. I was always told, you work hard. My dad always told me, I work hard so you don't have to. And I found myself working hard. I learned in that setting how people can have cutthroat. I learned how people who have worked longer would try to put you up to the task of doing things that they wouldn't do. if they had an issue with the manager and you had an issue, they would get you to try to say something or make a lot of noise about it. That way, they didn't hurt their spot because they had seniority. So I dealt with stuff like that. But during my time there, because even though like I know what I said, working, I'm sitting there sweeping the dock and cleaning the bathrooms. Like, man, my parents work hard for me to be doing this. They never told me you're too good for a job. What they always preach was don't settle. So I'm doing this and I'm just getting irritated. But then, as more people come in, I would move up essentially and go to stocking the warehouse and doing that cool stuff. So I worked there, and afterwards, after I finally graduated from community college, well, I ain't gonna say finally, I did 3 years as opposed to 2 because I had some part-time classes. But after doing that, I went to the cardiac unit. I was on the ward. My job was a support associate. As a support associate, you might as well say it's housekeeping. You are cleaning and changing beds, cleaning the rooms. The difference between us and the environmental services department was we could touch the patients. So if there was a patient who needed to be held to get a shot or be moved from one bed to another, we could do that. Environmental service workers could not. My job was to support the nurse. And I did that, but it was tough. It was tough for me emotionally because my grandmother, before she passed away, she had heart issues. And to see grown men cry, to see families come out there, it was a rough deal. While I was there, just to give you some context, I helped put a body in a body bag, and I took 5 trips to the morgue. So if a patient expired, we had to put them on the morgue cart. And if you've been in the hospital, if you work there, you probably know what it looks like. If you don't work there, you've probably seen it and don't know what it looks like. It's just like a regular stretcher, but it has a box and it's got a cover. So we had to take them down to the morgue. And generally, we didn't have to go through the public too much, but you're coming through the hospital unit, you're going to see it. But you can get to an elevator that takes you straight there. So I did 5 trips of those. So that was tough. And afterwards, I said, you know what? This is it. So I'll move on. I go to Renner Center. And I worked there for a year. After I graduated community college, I was supposed to take a 1-year break. I got married to my first wife. And the deal was I was going to take a first break. She was going to finish school. Then I would resume. Well, I didn't finish school because after working at Renner Center and then transitioning to Best Buy, I didn't have enough time to really get back into school, doing all the necessary stuff. And then it wasn't on my mind. So you miss due dates. And then I didn't think about the money and all that other stuff. Looking back at it, blessing in disguise. But after I did that, I went to, where'd I go? After I worked at Best Buy, this is around the time I get divorced. I was at Best Buy 3 months, and then I left my ex-wife, moved back with my parents. I went another year, and I missed the deadline. Well, no, I actually went to the school, went to Morgan State University. They didn't get my transcripts in time. Because they didn't get my transcripts in time, that meant I couldn't go to school. Now, I wasn't smart enough to know, nor did I have a network around me to let me know, hey, just go back in the spring semester. So I waited a whole year. But I tell you, 2010, this is around the time I met my current wife also, that July, I knew it. I went in June to do all of acceptance and all that. So I knew August I have to register. They got all my transcripts and stuff in time, and my wife had actually helped me set up my classes. And my time in Morgan State was a success. Maybe one day I'll do an episode on that, just because that's a whole another huge story. I'm gonna focus on just my transition and booking in this with Johns Hopkins from being in the storeroom to now where I'm at now. But I go to the I go to Morgan. I get accepted. I have a great time. Probably the highlight was obviously creating a wrestling round with the real Dwayne Allen. Shout out to my brother. We I had a talk show with my cousin. It didn't really work out, and that could be a whole nother show right there. But I had a talk show with him. Didn't really work out. Ended up going to um, ended up going to school, and I'm trying to do my own thing. I'm doing recap videos on the channel, and I'm doing all this type of stuff. But I knew, man, I like having that co-host. I like being able to talk to somebody about the stuff that's going on. I meet the real Dwayne Allen. We create the wrestling realm. Little did I know that the wrestling realm would be a key part of me getting in to ESPN. So, my last year, I joined the National Association of Black Journalists. As I joined the National Association of Black Journalists, we went on a short course. And, I during that time was where I learned about how to put together news segments. And it was a crash course on news and putting together a news program, because that's what we spent the whole weekend. But you learn about politics in the newsroom. You learn how to deal with different things. I didn't really learn, but so I use Adobe Premiere, and I learned on Final Cut Pro. For the first time, I saw Avid. So it was a lot of different stuff down at that short course. And so after the short course, we built the family down there. But after that, it was time to graduate. So after graduation, I spent the summer obviously looking for jobs. And I just knew if I could get to NABJ 2013 in Orlando, Florida, then I would have the opportunity that I needed to get in front of somebody, hand them my resume, and get a job. And that's exactly what happened. I would go there. I would get recruited by ESPN, moved to Connecticut for 2 years, stayed up there. During my time at ESPN, it was phenomenal. Nothing. Obviously, I left. I left on my terms, but it wasn't because the job was that bad. It was literally because I'm from Baltimore and I wanted to come back home. And after a while, being up there wasn't worth being away from home, especially I had a lot of changes, right? I moved to Connecticut September 2013. March 2014, I get married. May 2014, my wife lets me know she's pregnant. We already have my son, but they didn't move up there until we got married. So my daughter's born January 2015. Now, October 2014, I was getting to the point, I was like, man, I'm ready to go home. It was right after, I was thinking about it, I should say. It was right around the time the Orioles was in the playoffs. And I was like, man, I'm missing home, and I'm doing the same thing. I felt stagnant. I was working on Mike and Mike, and by this time I had been on the show, this is June, July, August, September, October, 4 months. And usually they rotate you every 4 months, and it was cool. But the problem was, because it was a radio show with a TV element as opposed to a TV show with just a radio element, there wasn't much focus on the production. So I knew how to cut videos, I knew how to make cut sheets, but there was only so much growing I was going to do. So it got to a point, I was like, man, I'm just ready to go home. But now, you may know, for those who do not know, I am a Bible-believing Christian. God makes things happen for a reason. After my daughter's born, I take 2 weeks off. I come back, I look at the schedule, or I get the email. They're changing my rotation. finally, I'm getting off of the show. And it was a great show. Shout out to my producer, Seth. It was really, really great producer. Shout out to Wes Rimson and Nate, who I worked with on that show. But I get the word that I'm moving on. I said, cool, where am I going? Going to social media. I said, okay, yes, I like social media. I like to tweet. This is good stuff. So I get to social media, man, and it's not exactly just tweeting, but I'm happy with that. I learned how to report because at the end of every night we had to send out what was the best tweet, what was the worst tweet, or I should say what tweet could have had a better opportunity. We live tweeted games. Championship games was the best because during championship games we had pizza and wings, so it was a party. All-Star game, same thing. Well, I think the MLB All-Star game, yeah, we had wings and stuff. I can't remember. No, we didn't. But I do know for the NBA Finals that year, for the national championship basketball we did, for the NFL and the NBA draft. Those were big party nights because we was all there live tweeting. Some of the big McGregor fight. It was a big McGregor fight and a big Ronda Rousey fight where we had to stay late. And we didn't have all the party stuff. But I got to be at ESPN, and I was like, that social media time was very crucial because not only did we do short form videos, this is the time when Periscope and Meerkat. Some of y'all may know Meerkat. Meerkat was out first, sort of similar to Snapchat, but it was the first like video streaming. Then they gave us Periscope. Periscope allows you to go live, and that was a big deal right before Facebook Live was introduced. And we had those avenues and those channels, and I was able to be a part of that and be able to teach it. So after doing Facebook Live, doing the social media stuff. Oh, another huge thing was Photoshop. Now, I had used Photoshop. I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, XYZ. But learning how to put together post-game graphics was very essential. And it was very key for me to understand how to use Photoshop to make shareable art that was good for social media. After that, I was still at the point like, okay, I like it, but I'm still ready to go home. So me and my wife, we was both looking, and the deal was whoever got the job first was coming home. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, and it's getting close to the football season. And I know, I said, man, if football season starts and I'm still here, it's going to be hard. I'm going to be locked in the whole nine. Then there was some changes going on as well. We got a new sports center, some new head of sports centers, and we got new management, and they were cool. But the biggest thing I missed out on was SummerSlam 2015. I found out. So let me slow down. The day before my 29th birthday, my wife calls me and said, happy birthday. And in my head, I'm like, happy birthday. You know my birthday's tomorrow. She said, we're going home. She got a job teaching. I put in my notice. I make this cool announcement on social media. I write this cool thing up about raising my children. Because at this time, my daughter's 7 months. So I'm excited. 6 months, and I'm excited. She's going to grow up around her grandparents and her cousins. My son is going to be back. He's 5 at this point in time. And he told me he wanted to go back to Baltimore. And I told him I was going to do everything I could. So we get the job. She gets the job. And I tell my manager, and he says, dude, I was going to send you to SummerSlam. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But yeah, so we moved back home. And at the time, I thought I had a job locked down. It's a company. I won't name them. But it was a school. I was working in multimedia department. And they even did my background references. But they never called me back. And even one of my mentors called, said, "Hey man, I had a good conversation. Good luck. I don't know what happened, but I'm home." And I'm home for 6 months. But at this time, I got to be with my daughter, who's, uh, at the point in time now, she's obviously she knows who I am. She's starting to say small words, but now I was there for the first time she crawled, and then when she took her first steps. So February rolls around. So no, actually, let me start. September-ish, I find this company called the Boss Group. I send them an email. I'll go down there. I talk to them. They don't really have nothing for me, or they tell me they're gonna get back to me. So I wait and I wait. So then I send them another email around February. This guy, my man Dustin, hits me up. "Hey man, yeah, I see you. We got your file XYZ." I said, "Yeah, I'm really excited. The whole nine." I just want to find an opportunity. He said, "Well, what do you like?" He said, "Video production." Boss Group is a creative agency, so they find stuff that's in our field, like whether it's web design, social media, event planning, video production, that stuff. So they give me a call. I go down there, I interview with Dustin. Knock the interview out the park. He and I just click. He says, "Man, I got an opportunity for us." Where? Johns Hopkins. I said, "Okay." Now I just seen this communication specialist job. And I was thinking, okay, communication specialist mean communicate with the media. I can do that. But I didn't see this job. And they set me up with an interview. So the lady calls. She says, we just to let you know, this job is more, we want somebody with a science background. I said, okay. So the person who's vacating the position got promoted, but she had a PhD. So in my head, I'm like, man, I only got a bachelor's degree. So we know how this will go. So, but I appreciate it. She let me know what it was, straight up. Didn't beat around the bush. So they bring me in. During the interview, she says, "My manager thinks she knows you." I said, "Really?" "Yeah." I said, "What's her name?" Dr. Audrey Wong. My mouth drops. Oh boy. Like, yes. No, she said she thought she taught you. Let me say it right. And when she said that, she said, "Dr. Audrey Wong," my mouth dropped. I was like, uh-oh, I'm not getting this job. Then you say, why? In high school, all those years, 4 years of high school at Baltimore City College, I only failed one class. Guess who was a teacher? You guessed it, Dr. Audrey Wong. IB Biology 2, a class I had no business taking, but I listened to my dad who said, "Do not take chemistry and physics and geometry at the same time." And after I failed that class, trying to avoid physics, which they would make a required class, guess what? I had to take it anyway while I was in Saturday school for Dr. Wong's class. So in Saturday school, I get an A. That redeems myself. So yeah, Dr. Wong, I have an A on my transcript. I get like a 70 in geometry, but I get like a 90 something in physics. So I did all this avoiding for what? Nothing, right? But anyway, I passed the phone interview. They bring me in. I sit down, and I remember talking, and one of the ladies asked me, "You only seem to do sports. Are you going to be okay with this position?" I remind her, I interned at the Baltimore Sun in the Better Business Bureau. I can do more than sports. The other guy, the only guy in the room, he asked me, he said, "Okay, are you going to be fine making the transition to medicine?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm really excited. This is what I want to do, interview stuff." So afterwards, we get on the elevator, and he and I have a conversation. Come to find out, he used to be a sports reporter, but he made the transition doing medicine. And I was like, wow, okay. So we just clicked. Shout out to my man Ben. He's no longer at Johns Hopkins, but Ben was a great dude. I'm gonna text him. But I get the call back. They liked me. The next day, Dustin calls. "Dude, what did you do?" I said, "What?" He said, "Man, they love you." I said, "Oh yeah?" He said, "Yeah. think they're gonna offer you a position. Cool. They offer me a position. They tell me it's temporary. Straight up. You appreciate that, right? Now I'm about to throw you guys for a curveball that's gonna come. So we're getting ready. The point was to get ready for the Science Writers Boot Camp. And Science Writers Boot Camp is an event where journalists come attend to learn about the latest update. We pick a subject and they come to learn about that subject and learn how to report on it better. And it's like they get to ask all the questions right there and write their stories, right? And it gives us face-to-face time with journalists. Because now this is more of a PR-ish job. No, it's not. Yeah, it's more of public, like more media relations, public relations, as opposed to the journalism, what I'm used to. But my job was to help them get ready for that. Help them. They said they wanted somebody with social media experience. Now, truth be told, there was not much social media experience. That's how I know it was a gift from God. It was not that much social media experience that was required with the job because I only tweeted a little bit and it didn't have much to do with the Science Writers Boot Camp. My job for the boot camp was sending out emails to doctors, updating the website, that type of stuff. There was a time where I had to watch these videos, these scientific videos, and translate it and write tweets. And oh my goodness, that literally took hours because I just didn't understand the content. Now, it's funny to look back at it as we get closer to 2020 because in 2016, I was like, man, I didn't know anything about none of this stuff. Now, in 2019, I actually know a little bit about science and medicine. But I get there, man, and it's cool. The first couple of weeks, first couple of days, I'm like, it's different. My teammates, they were different. Then I meet my current manager, Marin, and it was just like a meeting, one-on-one meeting. She's the assistant director, and she's explaining to me her journey there, and where she worked before getting there, and just my expectations. And I was like, finally, okay, somebody on this team that I feel like I can click with, that can understand me. We're going to connect very well. Dare say, easily, one of the best managers I've ever had. I mean, I call her and Audrey tag team champions. They just both believed in me. More on that. So we get to we get closer to the boot camp. Before that, they asked me, can you look at our social media and tell us what we could do better? So I look at it, I said, one, we need to have tweets with every picture, pictures with every tweet. If there's an opportunity, let's get these doctors to speak on video. I don't know nothing about this stuff, but I know if you put a video and have somebody explain it to me, it can help draw up engagement. So they listened. And next thing you know, we was from 636 followers to after the boot camp, we have reached over 1,000 followers. And the curveball, I told you it was a curveball coming. So they tell me at the boot camp that my last day would be June 19th. I said, okay, that's cool. June 19th. No, I'm sorry. Was it? Yeah, it was one of them days. Why am I confused? Yeah, I want to say June 19th. I said, all right, cool. So then I'm looking. Now I got to be aggressive because I ain't trying to lose, have another gap. And I find out that Ring of Honor Wrestling is hiring for an associate producer. I applied. I don't even remember if I talked to anybody, but I got the interview. They called me. I go in there. I sit down. I talk to guys. And then they introduced me to a couple of people, and I let them know that, yes, I was a fan of wrestling. I've been to a couple of shows. I don't really tell them, like, I've worked with some of their talent, but I just let them know, like, I kind of told them, like, look, this is where I want to be at. And like I said, the interview was good. Then a couple days later, the guy calls me. He said, dude, I got to be straight up. I want you, but I don't know if we're going to be able to pay you what you're making now. And, I just want to know, can we have a happy medium? So I gave him a number. I let him know that I wanted the job because this job is currently temporary. So this is, this is my battle. A couple days later, Audrey, my manager, Dr. Wong, she comes over to me. So, do you have anything going on? I'm like, no, I've had an interview or two. Do you want to stay? I said, can I say this to you? Hell yeah. She said, all right, cool. Because I'm doing some things, and I think with your experience in social media, this will help. So there's revamping another channel and another initiative. So then I called Dustin, and I tell him about the Ring of Honor interview. Then I tell him about the invite to stay. And I think she said she had to check or something. I feel like that's what happened first. Or maybe she didn't call. Nah, yeah. So I called Dustin. And Dustin was like, dude, I mean, I don't know about Ring of Honor, but it's just, I would advise you to stay because if they love you at Hopkins, and they're going to try to find a way to keep you. I said, okay. I trusted him. I just known him for a few months. And I figured, like, okay, well, obviously he wants me to have a job because that's how they get paid. But, maybe he could put a word in. And the cool thing about the boss group was that if, say, I wouldn't have not stayed there, they could have placed me somewhere else. They help you find jobs. So if you're out there, you're looking for a job, find a headhunter. So I get there, and man, it was surreal. I stayed at Johns Hopkins. I'm still here to this day. But just some of the cool things that I've been able to do, been able to travel. So we're in 2016. I'm trying to come up with different ideas to keep my job. I'm like, hey, we should do these videos. My manager's like, sure, do it. I'm like, okay. We started making videos. We wanted to tweet more. I said, cool, do it. I said, let's tweet with GIFs. I had a couple of teammates, shout out to Chanaka, who was very funny, to say the least. She's an awesome writer, but she can also find like the perfect GIF for everything. And we was tweeting with GIFs when necessary, not too much. But we had a channel that focuses on the journalist audience, and I would explain, journalists are getting younger. They are looking to social media for their content, and to have such a huge support system from my managers meant the world to me. We was able to, like I said, live tweet a lot of stuff that would evolve into attending different events and live tweeting them. The first Science Writers Bootcamp, I was just tweeting. So I tweeted like a halftime update. Like, here are the biggest things that happened. Looking back at it now, I'm like, well, that wasn't much. But that evolved into the next year where we had a full social media strategy, tweeting a lot of the content, tweeting leading up to it. That would also transition to, they would send me to, the first trip I went to was Durham, North Carolina. It was Durham, for a precision medicine conference where me, Chanapa, and my friend Rachel, we were sent there to live tweet our speakers. And then we brought back the report to say, when our speakers were speaking, this is the way Twitter looked. I mean, we had the highest engagement. That led to another trip to California where there's the bigger precision medicine conference, and we would go out there to do the same thing, live tweet. This time I wanted to incorporate video, so I would use my phone. At the time, I think I had an iPhone 6S, or iPhone 6S Plus, and I would film the speaker. Hey, can you give me a recap of your speech? Boom, we did that. We live streamed we had a media briefing. We live streamed that. And I'm sitting there, I'm just watching, like, wow, we are really evolving as a team. We get to 2018, they asked me to go to Chicago, Illinois. And I'm like, wow, I get to go to Chicago. I ain't never been to Chicago for the American Heart Association meetings. Same thing, live tweeting. And I'm tweeting that, and me and my friend Vanessa were getting videos and all this cool stuff. That takes us into 2019. And man, oh man, what a year this has been. Right after my wedding anniversary in March, I get sent to Vegas with my manager, with Audrey. And you look at things come full circle. The very teacher, the only teacher in the history of my school career, educational career, who failed me, was with me on my first trip to Las Vegas, Nevada for a work trip. And it was just like, wow. And why we, I mean, and when I say we was working, I mean getting up at 6 a.m, be over to the sessions by 7:30, 8 o'clock, not getting done till 5 or 6 in the evening. I mean, there was a photo that floated that Audrey took with my head on the desk that Friday because it was just out of it. Then we went to the pool, and then you think Vegas is warm, even if it was not. It was cold. I had a suit on, but it was still like not freezing, but it was just you know how the weather gets right before it's like about to break, and you just like, come on, if you could just get 5 or 10 degrees warmer. That's how I felt the whole time. But the food was amazing, I have to say. After we leave Vegas, I come back. We had another science writers boot camp. That was a success. Oh, actually, no. Before that, we had in April, we had three conferences within 2 weeks. And I had to put together a strategy. I had to put together a plan. And that's where I really learned the importance of putting together a social media plan for those things. And that was able to help. Then we had a couple of press briefings. Now, my experience in nutrition was able to help us when we did a press briefing we live streamed the press conference, and we had to go get the patient from the hospital. And I was able to show my manager, Marin, I said, hey, don't worry about it. I know the shortcuts. And that was helpful because they was thinking, oh man, we might have to take the patient outside. It's too cold. I said, nah, you gotta know these shortcuts around here. And I look back and I think about those days in nutrition, and I was like, wow, I'm been here, but now I'm in the floor. There was an opportunity one day. We had I want to say a prince or maybe a king. And he came to meet with some leadership at the hospital. And I remember texting my mother, and I just said, wow, 12 years ago, I was in the basement of nutrition. And now I'm texting you, wow, I'm in a room full of leaders here at Johns Hopkins. The president of the hospital, the dean, and it's just amazing. A lot of these times I go to these conferences and I am the only Black person in the room. And it's just going to show you, my glass breaking moment, I know for me at Johns Hopkins, was, to me, the moment we reached 1,000 followers on Twitter. Because I kept saying, let's get there. We got to do things. And there's so much that I could go on to unpack the journey. But the moment we reached 1,000 followers, I think that's when it was evident, like, okay, one, I really like this job. But two, I really felt that management really believed in me, that I don't think they ever doubted me. Looking back at things, at least not maybe the communications manager who brought me on, who I reported to first. But no, I don't think she doubted me. But I think that when we reached 1,000 followers, and we was growing, and that our content was starting to gain traction. I would do things whenever we had to escort the media to the doctors. I would say, "Hey, can you follow us on Twitter? Can you follow us on Twitter?" I would ask my friends, "Follow us on Twitter." I would do everything. But once we hit that 1,000 mark, that's when I realized I think that was my glass breaking moment, because that actually no, I have another one. The real glass breaking moment, and a real moment for me, was when there was an issue from another team that I was filming, doing our own videos for our channel, and I had my manager sit there, and I was like I felt like an athlete, and I had my agent sitting there speaking on my behalf, and when they showed their confidence in my work and my ability, that was the glass breaking moment. This is right, and it all kind of came around the same time, 1,000 followers, and then that part. But not only did I have my manager support me, I had my team, and that's the reason why I go so hard for my team. Now, granted, my team has gotten, we would get smaller and we get bigger. It's changed since 2016, and before you know it, you find yourself in a leadership position or as a veteran, because you're sitting there and you're like, wait a minute. I was the one who would go to people and ask them questions, and now I'm looked at as a leader. I look at my friend Archie, Rachel, and I. We started around the same time, and we all grew different ways in our positions, but we all grew. Now, you may have seen on Hopkins Med News Twitter account the show title, in case you missed it. There you will see a series I produced. And shout out to Rachel, the host. That's where I said, because I actually thought about the idea one day, standing at the front desk talking to my friends, looking at my watch. There's a thing that said 5 things you may have missed from CNN. I said, what if we did 5 things you may have missed from Hopkins? What if we do it in video form? And for those wrestling fans out there, Audrey is like Vince McMahon. You go to her with an idea, and you'll be a C, and she'll turn it into an A. But that's how the whole team works as well, because you sit there and you think about, what, I got this idea, but I don't know what to do, or maybe we could do this. And then next thing you know, people start pitching things. They throw things. Well, do it this way, do it that way. And that's been my career as a communication specialist at Johns Hopkins, where I've had teammates who we all support each other. So that's been great. Like I said, this year's been phenomenal. These medical meetings, and then I just, not too long at the time of this recording, this is the first Saturday that I've had off in 3 weeks. I had a conference in Atlanta, and then a conference in Philly, and then one here in Baltimore. So it's like 3 weekends in a row. But it's all started with, who would have thought, social media. And I really appreciate my time at ESPN, because that changed the game for me. It made me more marketable. And from a career standpoint, that's when I broke through the glass ceiling. Because, sure, I could do video production. I did that. That's what I went to school for. I wanted to do broadcast journalism, but I changed it to video production. Shout out to Monique Jones. Hopefully, let me get Monique on the show one day. But shout out to Monique Jones. But I wanted to do video production. Like I said, I wanted to do broadcast journalism, switched over to video production. But that's when I broke through the glass ceiling, was when they put me in social media there, because that allowed me to be more marketable. That allowed me to hustle in a different way. Sure, my Uncle Troy, who is the producer and I think one of the CEOs for Levitical Sound, and the lead manager for Deontay and New Direction, he contacts me on a regular basis to do his social media graphics, his flyers, the photo shoots, and the film. So But before that, I mean, I probably would have been, I would have probably been able to do flyers eventually, but not the way I can do them now. So, I hope that as I look to close this out, I really appreciate you guys, those who sat here the whole 50 minutes plus to listen to me and hear about my story. I hope that it can inspire you to go out there and just, whatever it is that you want to do, don't give up. Everybody has a story. And like I said, there's a lot to mine. After I let you hear some more of my friends' stories, maybe I'll share one of my other ones. But I can obviously talk a lot about myself. I could have did it in 3 hours and probably still wouldn't have been the whole story. But I'm gonna break it up and spread it out. But I'll definitely, I'm looking forward to this podcast. I'm looking forward to this journey. It won't be a recording every week the way I do Break It Down with Brian H, because that podcast isn't going anywhere. That, of course, is a podcast by the Wrestle Realm. That's not going anywhere. But these shows, like I said, I got in the books coming up for you. I got Brandon Williams, my brother from NABJ. You'll hear the story how me and Brandon met. It's really good. I got Kelsey Nicole Nelson, one of my other good friends, my good sister. These are two of my best friends in the business. So those are two that's already lined up. So I'm excited for you to hear their stories as to how they got started in the business and what they did. What was their glass breaking moment? For Brandon, he's still in school. So for those out there who's in college, he's a good inspiration as to how you can make an impact while you're still in school. But ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude the pilot episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Brian H. Waters. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Leave me a 5-star review. I would appreciate it. And, simply, if you want to get on and share your story, if I haven't reached out to you yet, by all means, feel free. Send me a DM on Twitter at Brian H. Waters. My DMs are open. So go ahead and, or Instagram, same thing. So, appreciate you guys. Remember, you too can break through the glass ceiling.